Everyone, and we'll call to order our June meeting of the Tobacco Settlement Oversight Committee. And to begin with, I'd like to ask Representative King if she would lead us in a prayer, please.
Thank you. Please join me. Dear God, we pause for just a moment at the beginning of our meeting to just stop and praise you and thank you for giving us this responsibility. Thank you for the organizational teams that will be presenting this morning, the producers all across the Commonwealth and this nation that are feeding and clothing all of the neighbors and family and friends that we love. We want to stop and thank you for that opportunity. Be with us and help us make good decisions, and we'll give you all the thanks and glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Now, I would like to ask Senator Deneen if he will lead us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now I'll ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Senator Rocky Adams, Senator Boswell, Senator Deneen,
Here.
Senator Harper Angel, Senator Webb, Representative Brown, Representative King,
Present.
Representative Pratt,
Here.
Representative Reed,
Here.
Representative Works,
Here.
Co-Chair Mays Bledsoe, and Co-Chair Dossett.
Present. We do have a quorum and would like to ask for a motion on May's meetings, please. Representative Platt, need a second? Second. All those in favor? Any opposed? And it's passed. Okay, now we will move on to our first presentation and ask my friends, Brian Lacefield and Bill McCloskey, to come forward, and they will give their presentation from the funding on the Ag Development Board.
Brian Lacefield, Executive Director of the Kentucky Office of Ag Policy, and good morning. It is great to be back with you. As Bill and I were walking in, I said, I look forward to this every month. I feel like this is our chance to come and let the decision makers know what's going on with the Ag Development Funds, and it continues to be a busy time in Kentucky agriculture. I've got some special guests with me today. Hannah Johnson comes every month with us, and she's the one that gets all our reports over to you and takes care of that. Her title's the Boards and Special Events Manager, and she also rides herd over making sure we've got all of our board members coming to each board meeting with 28 total board spots and 27 different board members that and all the volunteer board, as you know, that takes some doing to coordinate, and we appreciate everything she does. Tara Roberts with us has been with us a few months. He is our new loan program manager. We have two of those running our ag finance program, again over $110 million in assets, and we're doing that with two dedicated employees, and that is largely thanks to the partnership that we have with our participating lenders. And was going to have both of my interns with us this summer. We're very excited. They started this week, and our interns, a large part of what they do each summer is work on the annual report that we'll be providing you all in the fall. That is the best outreach publication that we've got, and showcases all that we have going on, but only had one was able to make it. Braden Porter, and Chairman Dossett, you'll recognize the Porter name from Christian County. He's a Christian County native, as is the chairman and I, and his father was my dentist, Dr. Wesley Porter, and he's at the University of Kentucky. Ag Econ and Finance major, and has spent last summer interning with Judge Atkins back home. So he's getting the experience of ag policy with us today. Our other intern, and since I guess we won't have a July meeting, you won't get a chance to meet him, but you knew his older brother that came with us several times, Martin Williams, that worked in our office for several years. But Benjamin Williams is another UK Ag Econ student from Nelson County, and he is former state state president of FFA and is missing today because he is interviewing for a national FFA office. So we're very proud of him and definitely gave him an excused absence for what he's doing. Since Bill and I were with you last time, we have had another board meeting for both Ag Finance and Ag Development, but have also continued operations throughout the state. But right after we left you all last month, Bill and I went over to Scott County to Elmwood Stock Farms and toured that operation. Mac Stone is one of our board members on the Ag Finance Board, and he and his family, the Bell family, operate this, and it is a fascinating operation. Regenerative agriculture, organic, doing sales to consumers through both the CSA or the community-supported agriculture model, and then through retail sales. But as we were touring that, I lost count with how many different enterprises they have. I just was blown away with everything that they were doing. And Bill and I usually travel with a cooler as we travel and tour these places so we can purchase some samples everywhere we go. My wife wonders why I keep, the freezer's full, Brian, but yet you keep adding to it. But I gave a good taste test to several of their steaks, and getting prime grade out of grass-fed beef. That was impressive. Bill and I also spoke to the Virginia Ag Leadership Group, talking again about this international model, Senator Webb, of what has happened here in Kentucky with the Master Settlement Agreement dollars, and that's always great when we get to share with other states what is going on. And Virginia, also a very tobacco-dependent state at the time this happened, and has not done the same as we have. With the spring allocation, this year's money hitting all the county accounts, we have had a lot of county council meetings across the state. The other night we had 6 spread out across the state, and thanks to a great team, we were able to cover every one of them and assist with facilitating those, and continue to have our training for our county level administrators of our program. So it's been a busy month, but getting a lot out the door. Go to page 2 in your packet that we provided is our update from the Ag Finance last month. A busy month. First time, I think, in a while we have had all 5 of our loan programs represented. We have 5 different participation loan programs: our Ag Infrastructure program, our Ag Processing, the DEAL program, which is the diversification through entrepreneurship and ag business. It's our Ag Business Loan, and then our Large and Food Animal Veterinary Loan program. That one we do not have. I think that makes the 18th loan we've done on that project. But 5 Ag Infrastructure loans, 7 Beginning Farmer, as that's the biggest portion of our number of loans and dollars in the portfolio, and then 1 of each of the other 3 programs. But $2.29 million in total participation loans from Ag Finance funds, but a total part of $7.7 million in capital projects across the state. I thought it was a good representation of participating lenders. We had 2 of our 3 farm credit systems, 6 different community banks, and 1 economic development corporation. So just again showing the diversity of participating lenders that we work with, and again credit these partners for how we are able to do so much. All right, I'll pause there, and then Bill can walk you through some of the county level programs.
All right, we'll turn to page 3 and we'll get an update on the approval for the CAPE program, County Agriculture Investment Program. Recall about $16 million was allocated to the counties this year when the Master Settlement Agreement payment came in. So about 85% of that county money is invested in the CAPE program. So there's a couple of counties I want to point out. Any county has an asterisk: Webster County, Union County, Pike County, and Martin County are counties that are getting the 3rd year, I think we've done, of the state funds being allocated to those counties that don't receive a lot of money or less than $30,000. For example, Union County, $922 was their allocation, so they haven't been able to do many programs in that county. Pike County is one of those 2 counties, not being the other one, that does not get any allocation. And if you recall that the allocation formula was set up back in House Bill 611, Senator Webb, I think it was Representative Webb at that time, if you recall, House Bill 611 in 2000 allocated the county money based on their tobacco history, how many pounds they grew, how many pounds they sold. So that formula is still used today. So when we get that county money allocation, then we plug that into that formula and let the counties know how much. For example, Representative Keene, Mercer County received this year $230,279, and they approved $204,000 of it for the CAPE program. Going down some of these other counties, Davis County, their CAPE administrators, Green River Beef Improvement Group, their allocation this year, Senator Boswell's is $209,503 was their allocation on county money. Any questions on the CAPE program? Again, there's 11 different investment areas in the CAPE program. So that was $2,514,634. Next, moving on to page 4, we got some different programs here. First, starting off the deceased farm animal removal program. So that was 3 entities, which all of them are fiscal court, administering the dead animal removal program for $34,813, and they can utilize county money up to 25% of their total budget, not to exceed $15,000. So for Montgomery and Nelson County, the fiscal court, they have a dedicated truck and employee picking up dead animals, taking them to the landfill. In Harrison County, they contract with a company called Countryside. Moving on to the Next Generation program. So this can be a county can select a target beginning farmers age 18 to 40 that may not be as competitive in the CAPE program. So again, it gives the county opportunity to set some money aside on a cost share basis or cost share program that basically mirrors the CAPE program. Under shared use of equipment, you've got two counties that were approved. And the most, as we reported in the past, the most popular shared use equipment purchased is no-till drills. That's the case here at Hart County Cattlemen's Association. So at $36,000, that represents 75% of the purchase price. So the applicant comes up with 25%. And then Christian County, Representative Dossett, that is for purchase of a manure spreader. So apparently that's a demand or a need that they have in the county, and that's on what we have a pre-approved list.
And Bill, let me share something on that. I hear numerous times during the month from my wife fusses about the manure being spread there close to my house. But it, as I've had farmers say, it's gold.
It's gold. I was lobbing you a softball on there. I thought you might run with that one. All right, and then moving on to the youth program. Again, this is an opportunity to make investments with county money to use to cost share. Most of them are livestock. Recently in Nicholas County, working with our new administrator up there, and we toured some farms where the youth are used the money for goats, sheep, hogs, or cattle that they're going to show in the different shows, county level, maybe even at the state fair as well. So that totals $2,760,618. And then moving on to page 5, so there's 3 CAPE administrators here that have been approved back in March. So they were able to utilize some of their balance they had at that time to go ahead and start administering or running the CAPE program. And then when the new money comes in, they'll come in and amend it. So you can see on Campbell County Conservation District, they were approved back in March for $30,725. So they added $30,725 to their amount that was approved earlier back on March. And they have a year to spend the money, and they can go retroactive back 6 months from the time that Brian Lacefield signs the legal agreement. So we learned early on that you had to set a deadline to disperse the funds. If not, they send it back, and then it rolls over in their account, and they can use it for next year. So Montgomery County Conservation District originally approved for $83,000, so they're going to add $117,000 for new money to bring that up to $200,000. And then Owen County Farm Bureau was approved initially for $150,000, and so they're going to add $300,000 of their new funds to bring it to $450,000.
And let me just jump in real quick, Bill, while you're doing that. We've got so many new committee members with that. And one of the things as I travel the state and the staff does in talking with the different members of these county councils is a misunderstanding that these funds could end up, if you don't spend them all in 1 year, they could disappear, be turned back to the state. That is not how the statute is set. That is not how the accounting works. That once the funds are allocated based on that formula Bill talked about, they remain in that county for forever, and even are paid interest on any of the county balances that are in there. And when you see these amended applications, I actually really like when I see counties do this, because the CAPE program, obviously, as we talk about every time we're here, is the most popular use of county funds out there. But you also don't know what other applications may come in throughout a year. And if all the money is allocated day one to one program, you may miss out on some really good opportunities that these county councils may want to support that'll have lasting benefit. So it's a little bit of paperwork shifting back and forth with having to do the amendments, but I really like the leadership that you see from these counties that do that.
All right, we'll move on to projects. We're on page 6. We've got the Woodford County Fiscal Court requested $50,000 from their County Agricultural Development Council, was subsequently approved by the Ag Development Board for $50,000 of Woodford County funds. So apparently the Woodford County Council decided this was a priority that they wanted to support, so they did commit $50,000 of their funds to install permanent bleachers there in the Woodford County Park. So a lot of agriculture activities go on there at the Woodford County Park, so they wanted to install some permanent bleachers. Next, we have on page 7, Auburn University is requesting $64,880 in state funds over a two-year period to fund travel costs and student stipends for recruitment and support of veterinarians in rural areas of Kentucky. So this is trying to address, Senator Boswell, the shortage of large animal veterinarians. And this has been a trend for several years, not only in Kentucky, but it's nationwide. And several years ago, we developed, and we still have that program. I think we reported on that, large food animal veterinary loan program that several years ago, we established that. What we learned was when students graduate from veterinary school at Auburn, they usually come back and work in a practice a couple of years, and then they decide about 3 different avenues. Either they stay on as an employee or buy into the practice. They might work off the back of their truck, ambulatory service, or they may build their own practice. And so we've provided ag finance funds to help that where we get back to this project. Back in 2017, Auburn University was approved for a $248,000 USDA grant to be able to do some outreach in Kentucky. So it was over several years, starting in 2017, where they coordinated meetings with veterinary clinics across the state to basically evaluate their business with some of their students, and then make recommendations on maybe how the business could be more efficient, be more profitable, because there's certainly more challenges with large animal practices versus small animal. That's what they're competing with, because in a small animal practice, the clients bring them into the veterinary clinic, and just like a regular, human doctor, you go from room to room and to provide the medical service. And that's the same thing in small animals. So that's more profitable. So that's why we're seeing more of the veterinarians gravitate to small animals. But part of this study that Auburn did, again, funded with USDA funds in 2017, was to help work with these existing veterinary clinics with the students as part of the program, and to provide a presentation on how they might be more profitable. And it was very successful in that over 90% of the Auburn students that participated in that 2000 study are employed as large animal practices in Kentucky. So The thought was, let's visit with Auburn. Keith Rogers, Chief of Staff, Department of Agriculture, and myself visited with Auburn University back last fall to talk about how could we continue to address this issue. And they said, well, what about us duplicating this study? It's a proven model. Would the Ag Development Board be supportive of doing it again here in 2023? So that's how this application came about, and certainly the Ag Development Board is supportive. So this study will help address it. I've already talked about the Ag Finance Loan Program. The Ag Development Board has also provided some grant money available. I think we've got an application later that Brian's going to present on, where a veterinarian can access up to $100,000 as a grant to buy into practice or existing practice to buy equipment related to large animal. We'll talk a little bit more about that when that project comes up, where they can, if they get a commitment of county money, they can access state money up to a 5-to-1 match.
Bill, one moment. Senator Webb.
I just want, Auburn was up here too for the benefit of the new members a few years ago en masse, really, with their people from the vet school asking, having that communication. I appreciate you following up like that. I think this is one of the innovative ways to do this. I speak to pre-vet students at Moorhead quite a bit and trying to encourage them to not only come home but to do large animal practice. Yesterday, I got a call from Ashland. Now they're saying there's not enough small animal vets. Okay? So, I mean, this is just a time asking, what we could do. I said, well, we're trying. We're trying to incent and do these things because these kids get out with a load of student debt, and it's hard to buy into anything. But I think when the Modernization Act, I think the Veterinary Practice Modernization Act that we did here, does have a telehealth component. And I think what we're going to have to see, I think that'll alleviate the burden on the existing large practitioners, but also the federal drug laws are going to increase the pressure on those relationships and their presence being needed everywhere with antibiotics and those other federal regulations. So what I anticipate too is that you're going to get some requests maybe for veterinarian telehealth, especially in the large animal field. And I think that's going to be something that we can do to help these individuals be more accessible in the large animal practice, because the federal regulations and the KVMA protocols are going to put additional pressure on what practitioners we have. But thank you.
Okay.
Continue.
All right, move on to page 8. You've got the Logan County Conservation District was approved for $5,400 in Logan County funds to purchase a material roller, be used as shared use equipment to the application is spreading out these soil erosion blankets. You've probably seen them on the highways going down the interstate, where they roll out these erosion blankets that have grass seed in them. So there is a company in Trigg County, Brian, you're familiar with, I think it's Seven Springs, that we provided an ag finance loan to actually make these soil erosion blankets. So this is it's good to see a project like this that's going to collaborate with a project that we funded.
And that one was featured in last year's annual report, so you can see the write-up on the project there. All right, on page 9, we've talked about veterinarians quite a bit, and Bill did a great job. That was several of the things I was going to talk about in this loan about the initiative, what we're doing, and again want to compliment the commissioner and his leadership of bringing a task force together to get all the stakeholders involved to have these discussions about what we can do. Because to Senator Webb's point, it's going to take a combination of things. There is not one thing that's going to fix this problem, and we're thankful that we have a couple of tools within the Ag Development Toolbox that we can help. And this one was the new program that has launched out of these discussions and as of needs. Loans are great, but Senator Webb mentioned when you graduate from professional school and you have a pile of debt, which we learned even with the reciprocity agreement that's provided with the General Assembly to send Kentucky students to Auburn, our students are leaving with nearly $250,000 in debt. And so the loan is good, but we thought, is there other incentives around for doing that? And so we launched a grant level program to provide up to 75% of cost share for projects that would be anything that is related to the original loan program, where you can buy into an existing practice, whether you can expand a practice, or whether you can buy equipment. And the requirement is the equipment has to be related to large animal vet. I mean, it could be small animal could use it, but it has to be specifically for large animal. One additional component of this, as we learned in visiting with existing veterinarians and our stakeholders, is the ambulatory practice that Bill was mentioning, where a lot of times there isn't an actual brick and mortar practice, but the practice is mobile. It's the truck and the vet kit on the back of the truck. So this was a lot of discussion within the committee and then ultimately the board on, do we go that route? Because we have not in our existence funded things with motors. It's not been where we've not done the vehicles. But in this case, an exception was made for this program to include this. And wanted to try to think, too, how we can kind of continue to provide oversight for what we're doing. And so made a component that is different than a lot of our other state-level programs, but it's a requirement to have county-level participation. So you've got the gatekeeper there at the local level, and that's the thing that was set up the best when House Bill 611 created this, is keeping as much authority at the local level as possible. And so this requirement, again, will do a 5-to-1 match. So there's a real big leverage of county to state funds. We'll put $5 in state funds for every dollar of county, but have to have those county funds involved, because they're going to be the ones that know, is this practice taking care of the needs of the folks in this community. And we had our very first one. We've had a lot of conversations, and we're working through some other applications. But this one, Little River Veterinary Clinic in Trigg County, was the first one. And it is not. It is not for a vehicle. It is just for equipment. But I wanted to explain this to this oversight committee, that we may see one of those coming through sometime, and that was the spirit of what we're doing. But this request was for a total project of $78,299 for the equipment and the building and equipment for this practice. That is a large animal practice. And so with the math, to get the $48,936 of state funds, Trigg County committed $9,788, and that was our approval last month was contingent upon that. I can report that they met last night and did approve this, so all this will happen, and then the other 25% coming from the applicant. So I think this is a good example of this month, where we've had a loan with the veterinary program, we've had the grant where we're going to be working with the precept program, and then now our first grant on the ag development side. So excited to see some things coming out of these stakeholder meetings that we've been talking about.
Bill, one moment. We do have another question. Representative King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's more of a comment than a question. For the benefit of the committee members, I would like to draw your attention to the paragraph about application summary. If you're not familiar with especially cattle handling, it talks about efficiency and other considerations there, but it is a huge safety consideration. If you're trying to convince an animal the size of a Volkswagen what to do to help treat them and care for them, they don't feel good, they're grouchy. But these sweep tubs and these alleys, if you can just kind of picture in your mind, it takes the vast world and gives Mr. Cow, Mr. Bull or Ms. Cow, a small alleyway, and it just helps us care for these animals and keep them healthy and give them the much needed medications that they need. So some people may not realize again how dangerous it can be to medicate and treat cows, but if you think of them as trying to convince a Volkswagen that you want them to do something they may not be so inclined to do, it may make that paragraph make more sense. Thank you very much. To keep those people safe,
Well, and it's humane to the animal as well. So I mean, it's a
Absolutely.
win-win,
Absolutely.
and I really appreciate you making those comments, Representative King. And it's great to have a legislator that's been there and done that
Well.
and can appreciate it. And that's something too that you can tie back to the success of this whole program. When you look at the cattle handling facilities that have been bought with cost share money at the county level throughout the state, it has been a game changer over the last 2 decades.
And one example of how that can work is picture in your mind a huge field, and then we bring them into a smaller field and then a smaller pen, and things are just getting smaller and smaller. The animal is calm and not considering this threatening, and then the sweep tube just kind of convinces them to go into this chute and then receive the care and tender care that they need. So thank you. I just don't know that everybody realizes that. Thank you.
It is great, and we appreciate when you all point these things out.
That may be one of another field trip for us to go watch while we're working some cows.
You're always welcome at Four Kings Angus, Harrodsburg, Kentucky, Mercer County.
Senator Webb.
You can tell Carrie's got a good farm hand. But when you consider the age of the producers, including myself, that's more important than ever. But the budget side of me, you mentioned something about slots. And again, we've got some new members. And when you see those slot allocations in the budget, that's very important. It is a historical thing that we have done. We have tried to expand, but the main thing is, as we come to the budget cycle, that we preserve those slots and the funding attached therewith to continue that feeder program, if you will, veterinarians from Kentucky, and maybe something that we want to enhance. So the budget side of me just felt compelled to say, when you see that in the budget, that's a historical, well-proven expenditure that we might want to look to expand. But thank you.
That's a good point, Senator Webb. And my observation and discussion I had when I went to Auburn University on how to address that, one way would probably be the selection process of the students. Are the students willing to go back and work large animals? So I think they got to look at their evaluation program. And they've agreed to do that as well. So there's a lot of different tools, as Brian mentioned, that we've got in the toolbox to try and address this going forward.
Another question, Senator Deneen.
I have more of a comment than a question. Recently, I attended back home a Farm Bureau meeting, and I want to congratulate you on your messaging, because I think the messaging that there is a need for more large animal veterinarians was quite evident in that meeting when they were awarding scholarships to newly graduating high school students. And it was a long selection process and a lot of applications, but I was very encouraged to see a large number of those scholarships awarded to those going in to the vet field, and particularly large animals. So I just want to congratulate you on that. I think that messaging, and you spoke of it earlier, is sharing that message and getting that out. And there's a lot more people involved in this than just the state. But I see that messaging taking hold, and I see our youth starting to gravitate towards that program. So thank you for that.
Thank you for sharing those comments. That's good to hear.
All right, next we'll move on to page 10. So Scott County Fiscal Court, Representative Pratt, they're all in on building a farmer's market. So the farmers in that area are certainly excited about the opportunity of a $1 million investment in a farmer's market projects, which typically benefit the producers or farmers in the county, are going to be limited to county money only, but the Ag Development Board has made farmers markets a priority for several years now, where they will provide, with county money contributed, up to $250,000 between county and state money. So this is the case here, where the Ag Development Board approved $50,000 in county money and $200,000 in state funds to help get this project moving. All right, move on to page 11. We've got the Meade County Fair, Inc. was approved for $5,000 in Meade County to purchase a set of digital scales there in Meade County. So I think this is maybe the third project that the Meade County Fair has funded through these ag development funds. Next, on to page 12, Senator Boswell. I think this is a project in your area. Davis County Conservation District is administering their own youth program It's a little bit different in that it's more competitive, where the program we reported on earlier requires that a county that adopts the state guidelines for a youth program in the county, the money has to be prorated among the applicants. In this case, it's a scoring system where each one that's a youth that's approved is approved for up to $1,250. That's why there's a reference to 16 applicants would be eligible through this program if they all requested the same amount. And they've run this program several years there in Davis County. All right, staying with Davis County, so on page 13, Grain Day was approved for $12,000 in county funds for their 2024 Ag Expo. So it's my understanding this is going to be the 50th year of the Ag Expo, so they've requested more money than they normally do, usually in a budget around the $5,000. So I think they're wanting to add a little bit more glitz to the program in 2024 when they'll be celebrating their 50th year of having the Ag Expo, and this attracts vendors that sell equipment and farmers in the region to attend this program, and it's coordinated with UK with some educational sessions as well. All right, moving on to page 14, another youth program that's been submitted by Jessamine County FFA Alumni Association. Mentioned here that they've been administering the youth program since 2001 on a 50-50 cost share up to $500. So they have a graduation type arrangement or structure to theirs. With they come back a second year, they're going to get less money until they eventually graduate out, as a way to spread the money around in Jessamine County.
All right, page 15, we have a request, was $1 million request in state funds from JSW Farm Chop Shop, the Chop Shop in Wolfe County. It's one of our larger meat processors in the state. They're processing about 160 head a day and operating at full capacity. They have received ag development funds in the past for other projects that they have done, and had a new request in for $1 million that was going to expand their facility and get equipment that is necessary to wash, refine, and process beef tripe. Now, normally tripe is part of the offal, is the waste. It would not be utilized. This is a chance to capture this and turn it into further value-added good. Tripe, for those that are not familiar, is the stomach lining of a ruminant animal, and most of the time it's beef consumed. It is more popular outside the U.S. than inside the U.S., and they have an arrangement with China that is going to be buying this tripe as they process it. So there will be some expansion to capacity, but largely this project is going to further make the processing more valuable, as taking something that normally be a waste product and turning it into a finished product to sell. Because of this, the meat committee and then made the recommendation to the Ag Development Board to approve this instead of a grant or a forgivable loan, but to do this as a participation loan, much like what would be eligible under our ag processing loan program. So we're still within the parameters of how that would be, less than 50% of the project, and then basing it upon its size. So the Ag Development Funds will fund this at $1 million, but will transfer it over to the Ag Finance Corp, to where this will be returned with principal and interest, subject to the terms of how the ag finance would be. So we've done several like this and how they have, but that's how this project was funded and was approved.
Just
Senator-
one question.
Senator Boswell?
Sounds like a good project. Just have one question. So on the money that the $1 million is put up, the whole project, on the money that's being put up this project, who oversees the construction so there are some, well, anyway, how do we know that the money is spent for that building, and who oversees the project?
Oh, that is a great question, and thank you for asking, for benefit of all the new members on the committee. We fund at the end on our project. So this will work on, and this is the same process as everything we do with the ag finance part of our portfolio and shop is we partner with the participating lenders. They lend money for a living. We come in at the end of the project after everything is complete, and then we will buy the participation up to 50%, and we will have documentation for the draws and everything that was spent from that banker or member of the Farm Credit System. But because of that exact problem of making sure having to be oversight on every draw, that's why we pay the lenders the 75 basis points out of the interest that's paid back from the borrowers is for doing what they do, and that's overseeing the lending of money.
Thank you.
Yes, another question, Senator Webb.
Well, and in the chop shop scenario, I mean, they have a historical track record as well. They were one of the first meat projects that we've done years ago, and I'm pretty familiar with it. It's close to me, and if you go to the stockyard, you see the volume of meat they buy in the bluegrass area. So as a producer, but I mean, this particular entity has a pretty proven track record, and their expansion, would be deemed to me in that light. But thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You remember, Senator Webb, that originated out working with the Wolf County Fiscal Court and our executive director at that time, Roger Thomas, to help them launch that project. So they've been able to scale that business up into a profitable business. It's taken them several years, but it's a major player in the cattle industry here in Kentucky now.
If no other questions, we'll move on to page 16. This was an application from Robert Fox Jr. from Lee County, was requesting $5,000 in state funds to purchase a portable sawmill for his property. This project was denied by both board and then the Lee County funds for limited producer impact. So this was denied. However, this would be an eligible project under the Ag Finance, and that has been the stance for the board. A lot of these individual for-profit projects with limited producer impact have been referred to the Ag Finance program and not through grants.
All right, next on page 17, this was a request from the Callaway County Cattlemen's Association to the county council. So I attended this meeting, and a lot of discussion goes on in these counties, especially that have limited funds. So Callaway County gets about $30,000 to $40,000 a year. This year was a little over $31,000. So they historically rolled over 1 year's money to a second year, where they can run a CAPE program for something less than $100,000. So when they get a request, a lot of discussion goes on among the county council members about investing in a project versus the CAPE program. So at the end of the night, after much discussion, the Callaway County Council elected not to fund this request for a portable chute and encouraged their CAPE administrator to make application, which right now their balance is $114,000. So I think you'll see a CAPE application come to this county council here in the next month or two, and subsequently be presented to the board and here at the Oversight Committee. So there was no funding based on the county council didn't commit any money to the project.
And then the last thing in your packet should be a copy of our press release following last month's meeting. And that concludes our report, and we're happy to entertain any questions.
Do we have any questions? Brian and Bill, thank you for your presentation right there. As we're looking at this issue on the veterinarian end, I know conversation I've had at home with my veterinarian, we've got quite a few that have gone across the state line, and losing some of those doctors that have actually working from the Tennessee side rather than working the Kentucky side, going more into the small animal end. So, like I said, anything we can do to encourage more of our young people that are involved that have this interest, we want to make sure we keep them here and have them lined up, not only small animal but large animal as well. Any additional questions? Thank you both very much. We appreciate your
We just want to
presentation.
invite you to the Ag Development Board. I can tell you where I've been for 22 years now. The third Friday is an Ag Development Board. So Representative Reed has found his way to the board meeting occasionally and joins us for lunch. So we want to invite you all as well. So.
Absolutely. Thank you. Now, next coming up will be Van Ingram, who's the Executive Director of the Kentucky Office of Drug Policy.
Tomorrow.
Thank you, Chairman Dossett and Co-Chair Mace Bledsoe and members of the committee. It's always a pleasure to talk to this Tobacco Settlement Committee and report on what we've done.
Can you check your mic, please? I'm sorry, Van.
I'm sorry. Yeah. It's always a pleasure to testify in front of this committee and update you all on the Kentucky ASAP program that receives tobacco settlement funds. I'm always amazed at the foresight of the General Assembly in the Master Tobacco Settlement Agreement that created the Kentucky ASAP. Senator Webb and former Senator President Williams and others worked to create this that gives us a real chance to work with folks locally on substance use issues. Many states do not have anything like this. And the fact that we have people at the community level that we can reach out to and communicate with and get feedback from on a regular basis is invaluable. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Heather Wainscott and Amy Andrews that work with me that oversee the lion's share of the work of that program. But we are really blessed to have Kentucky ASAP. You know, later today, our office is going to release an overdose death report. And while there's good news in it, we have seen a reduction of over 5%. Still a lot of work to be done. We lose far too many Kentuckians to a preventable death. Statistically, we'll lose 6 today, and that's just unacceptable. So we have to double down and we have to work harder. Majority of this is caused by fentanyl and fentanyl analogs. Well over 70% of the overdose deaths in this nation and in this Commonwealth are related to fentanyl and fentanyl analogs. Precursor chemicals that come from China that are bought by Mexican drug cartels and others create this drug. And the thing that bothers me the most is they promote it as legitimate pharmaceuticals often. They disguise it to look like a Percocet 30. They disguise it to look like a Xanax bar. They disguise it to look like an Adderall. And a college student who thinks he's taking an Adderall to study all night overdoses and dies of a fentanyl overdose. Really drug poisoning more than it is overdose. And it's going on far too often, and it's a tremendous problem. House Bill 353 in this last session directs my office and behavioral health to do a fentanyl education and awareness campaign. We've contracted with a company called Shatterproof to help do that. And so hopefully you'll be seeing the results of that campaign very soon, and mostly on social media. But we are hoping to get that started very, very, very soon. With the funding that we were provided in FY23, we were able to give $20,000 per county to our local ASAP boards. We were able to go above that and give out another $680,000 in what we call supplemental awards. And that's where our local ASAP boards write for projects that they want to do in their community. And so we've been doing that since 2015, since we got Senate Bill 192 passed in 2015, and we've had that extra money. I want to mention another project that we're involved in with Kentucky ASAP funds, and that's a matching grant that we give to the Kentucky Chamber Foundation. We've trained over 5,000 Kentucky business leaders on being a second chance employer to be a recovery-friendly workplace. Right now, we're in our third policy academy. It's the Fair Chance Academy. Chamber's done a tremendous job of connecting with employers and HR directors and making them understand not just that it's the right thing to do, but we're going to have to do it. If Kentucky's going to fill its workforce needs, we can't leave people out. And so we've been really, really pleased with that program and the results that we've gotten out of it, of getting people linked with jobs. Another project along those same lines is a partnership we have with EKSEP, the Eastern Kentucky Concentrated Employment Program. We have contracted with them for the last few years to place somebody at all of our career centers in Kentucky whose main focus is to connect people in recovery in meaningful work. We call it SITE, the Strategic Initiative for Transformational Employment. When you go through treatment and you're into recovery, if there's no chance tomorrow's going to look any better than today did, it's really hard not to go back to old habits. And employment is one of the most significant things we can do to help those in early recovery stay in recovery. So we're really proud of that program. The other program we fund is the statewide call center. We pay Operation Unite to run that for us. It's 833-8KY-HELP. We get about 300 calls or so a month into that line. But more importantly, we do about 700 calls out. So everybody that calls that line gets another call at 7 days, 30 days, and 6 months to follow back up and see, did you get into a program? Is there anything we can do to help you? We've got some great folks that run that. They're all trained social workers. They're really good at connecting with people. They're really good at explaining the bureaucracy of substance abuse treatment. It's so many different things. It's not all just one thing. And they do a great job with that screening and referral service.
Van, can you
Chairman.
repeat that phone number, please?
833-8KY-HELP. We started that project in 2017, and it's really gone well. And finally, I want to update you on our Recovery Ready Communities program. This bill was passed 2 sessions ago, sponsored by Representative Bowling, signed into law by Governor Beshear to create recovery-ready communities. We've seen storm-ready communities. We've seen job-ready communities. This makes a community take stock of what they have in treatment, prevention, and recovery capital. We certified our first community a few weeks ago. It was Danville, Boyle County. Our partner in that project is Volunteers of America, Mid-States. They help us run that program. And we're really excited. Perry County's coming up very soon. Woodford County's is in the queue. Northern Kentucky has a joint application. So that program is moving along really, really well. I had the pleasure yesterday to speak to several hundred magistrates, commissioners, and judges at their conference, and really encouraging them as they look how to spend their opioid abatement money, that they look at this program that helps them take stock of what they have and, more importantly, what they don't have in their communities to support recovery. With that, I'll stop, Chairman, and happy to entertain any questions.
Do we have any questions? Yes, Senator Boswell.
Thank you for being here. Just had one question. Now, you mentioned earlier that there's a lot of college students that, for example, taking Adderall to study online. I'm sure that's true. But also, I would have to say, though, that my experience has been in having just recently had a friend lose his son to fentanyl, is that unfortunately, I found that the majority of these cases are involving people who have been addicted to drugs starting out at the bottom, from marijuana up to Xanax, Adderall, and so forth. So what I'm seeing, not trying to dispute what you said, because I know that's true, but I think we just don't want to lose sight of the thing. I think the majority of these are coming from people who've got started out at the bottom, and they've reached a point where they're buying things thinking they're going to get a certain feeling from these pills, and they end up having fentanyl.
Yes, thank you for that observation, Senator Boswell. When the report releases later today, the largest demographic is 35 to 44. The second largest is 45 to 54. So these are not people that started using yesterday. These are folks that have a history of substance use disorder.
Senator Mays Bledsoe.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your update. I have a few questions. When you talk about some of the opioid abatement money and the programs that the counties are doing, can you give me some examples of what that looks like?
Very few of them have started spending any money yet.
Okay.
And that's good, because my encouragement is come up with a 5-year plan. This is an 18-year payout. So you need a 5 to 10-year plan and work the plan. And most of them are considering doing that. There's not been a lot of expenditures yet.
I know Fayette County just set up their commission for that.
I saw that on the news this morning, yes.
And then when you talk about some of the money that was previously given to counties for some community projects, what does that versus program, what does that look like?
So Some of them operate recovery community centers. Some of them spend their money to support their syringe service programs in their community. Some of them spend their money on prevention education in the schools and club activities. So it's a wide variety. We love that each community looks at what they think they need rather than Frankfurt giving them a laundry list of here's the things you should do.
Oh, I think that's
Communities
really
get to
wise.
decide for themselves what they feel like they need.
And that's really wise.
We have some guidelines, of course, but
Well, I was very proud of Boyle County for being the first county. That's one that I represent, and I had seen their work and seen the award.
they had a
and
tremendous application.
They do. Their community is pretty solid, and they really look out for each other. You can see that in how they work. Are you familiar at all with some of the work? I'll use Deviate example. If you're familiar with Deviate Kitchen in Lexington.
I'm very familiar with Rob Perez, yes.
Rob's a longtime friend of mine. We've worked together for many years on doing reentry, and he just started working with the Department of Corrections on some of those, helping an employer who maybe has housing or who wants to do second choice employment, helping them experience what that might look like. Are you familiar with some of those new seminars? I'm in my 19th year at this office, and before that I had a 23-year police career. And I went through a reentry simulation with the Department of Corrections a month or so ago, and I was blown away at how difficult it is to come out of a correctional setting and get your life together. So I know Rob has done 2 of them. He has.
And I would encourage any of you, if you ever get a chance to participate in one of those, it's an eye-opening experience, and I've been doing this a long time.
I thought it was really amazing, and that's one of the things that I wish they could do more regionally throughout the state, because I think an employer or housing want to do the right thing, and oftentimes don't realize they see it from their perspective and don't see it from the other perspective. And having them go through that simulation really helps you better prepare yourself to be successful and really employ someone for them to be successful, so they don't go back into that system. So I wasn't sure if we were coordinating with some of that work or not, but I think that it's a model that should be really shared, especially at the community level.
That's one of the first activities of our Fair Chance Academy that we have employers go through is a reentry simulation. And it's, as I say, it's eye-opening.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ingram, thank you very much for an eye-opening, very informative report. 2 things I would like to request of you. One is that all the notes that you spoke from and information you gave out, can you send it to us?
Yes.
Or to me specifically if anybody else doesn't want it. And secondly, 2 of my concerns you touched on, and I think it's very important. Drug abuse, 3, reentry, and employment. Second chance of people who have had a mistake, a teenage discrepancy, or youthful problem that causes them to have a lifetime of difficulty in getting their lives together. So I'd like to get the information and your contact information.
Absolutely,
if you don't
sir.
mind. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Deneen.
Thank you for being with us. I have a couple of questions. You mentioned at the very beginning the scourge of fentanyl. 70% of our overdoses are you're finding to be fentanyl related. You mentioned the EKCF.
EKCF. Yeah.
Yes. Is that the only career center that you're involved with? Is that model being
No, the EKCF,
duplicated somewhere else?
We've contracted with EKCF to provide them in all the career centers around the state.
I wanted to make sure that was going on.
Yeah, we have
beyond.
somebody in each career center.
Okay, and I had another question, if I may. On the front end, we've got a lot of the treatment and the recovery and the employment issues. Are you seeing, as our executive director for drug control policy, are you seeing a definite funding need on the preventive side of things with our drug task force units across the state right now?
So the Justice Cabinet receives what's called Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant.
Yes.
It's a little north of $2 million a year. We just dispersed that among 11 drug task forces. When I started in 2004, that was $8 or $9 million a year. And that pot has just shrunk and shrunk and shrunk over the years. And it's kind of settled at a formula where we get as Kentucky gets about $2 million or a little more. That's enough to keep them operational, and that's pretty much it. If they need equipment, if they need training, my office does support an annual training for narcotic officers. But other than that, there's just not a lot of money to do anything else.
And the reason I asked that, I've spent some time in Hardin County's Drug Task Force unit and visiting with them, and they're very well run, and they're doing all they can, and I was amazed at how much they're able to accomplish. But I was also made aware of the need and the shortage of technology funding for other drug task force across the state that I think we really need to look into.
Yeah, Director Art does a wonderful job there in Elizabethtown, and they're a very active drug task force. But funds have just been hard to come by for that particular set of needs.
Thank you.
Senator Webb.
Thank you, and man, it's good to see you. And it's for those that don't know you, and I've known you a long time, but you really bring a balance of what we need for this office and your commitment, and it's your life's work, and we appreciate you. I appreciate you. I would ask, you talked about the criteria for the opioid settlement money. Is there? I know there's not a handbook, or where could you get in? My son's a mayor, and I think he's feeling the frustration of most of my elected officials locally that got this money. They want to get the most bang for their buck. They don't want to misspend it, but yet there doesn't seem to be a lot of guidance on how to spend it. Is your office offering some of that, or where do you find information?
So the Office of Attorney General has that on their website. It's a set of regulations that we voted on and approved on the commission early on, like in July or October, I think, maybe. Our first meeting was in July, and we were doing regs by October. And so it gives a pretty good idea of what is, but it's not a laundry list, right? It doesn't say everything that a community can spend their money on. And I always recommend to mayors and county judge executives, talk to your county attorney too, make sure, and have him read over those regulations and make sure you're safe there. And then you could always contact Director Hubbard with the Opioid Abatement Commission and his staff, and they can give guidance as well.
Okay, well, I appreciate
I'm sorry,
that.
I can't remember the number of those regs off the top of my head.
I've seen them, I've looked at them, but like you say, it's just, they just want to do what's right. My son's got a law degree, so I mean, he can look at it and see, but he's probably a little overcautious. But I try to tell him, there is creative interpretations that you can use. But as far as reentry, I appreciate those programs. Reentry is something we've given lip service to in this body as long as I've been here, and not really adequately funded or utilized successful regional models for consistency throughout. I think the agencies corrections can do more, but I practice criminal law, and sometimes it's just a lot easier for these guys and gals to go back into confinement than it is to try to create a new life. They don't have the opportunities, local triggers, environments, homes they go back to, friends they go back to, no opportunity of employment, especially in East Kentucky. So I appreciate that, but I just always have to say we've got to quit talking about reentry and getting people good avenues like you've mentioned, and models, consistent models throughout the state, particularly in those areas that don't have those resources in place. You're from Mason County, and they're a little more blessed. You're familiar with Northeast Kentucky. Yeah. And Mason County is more blessed than Lewis County, and in my district. But we need the consistency and the commitment to funding for these programs throughout, and that's just my commentary. But thank you.
Thank you.
Representative King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here again this year. Since we're in a tobacco settlement agreement committee meeting and talking about opioid abatement, leads me to ask this question. Several years ago, when it became apparent Kentucky was going to receive a vast amount of money to help with these protocols, I recommended several times to several people and several different organizations that they look at the tobacco settlement agreement put into place as a framework that should be in place into infinity. I guess my question is twofold. Will these funds eventually run out? And is there a reason that whoever made these decisions didn't look at the tobacco settlement framework as a vital one to consider. I see the settlements as being very similar.
Yeah, so, well,
Can
the
you
the
help
first
me,
pot of money is
understand
the
about a little
federal
bit that?
dollars that come to Kentucky, right? And we call that CORE, the Kentucky Opioid Response Effort. It's at the Division of Behavioral Health and runs great many programs, wonderful programs all around the state. Funds a number of things. Dr. Marks, who runs that program, was my co-presenter yesterday with the magistrates and commissioners to give them an example of some of the things the state is already funding. The opioid abatement money, the General Assembly set up a commission to oversee how those funds are utilized, and we're in the process now, and we'll be doing that. I won't be doing it for 18 years, but somebody will. Over the next 18 years, that framework will stay in place. So we have the tobacco settlement money as well. It's not as large as the other pots of money, but it's very specifically locally focused to let local communities. It's not a state-run program where we're telling communities, oh, you need to spend it on this or you need to spend it on that.
Follow up, please. But that is the very crux of my question. Why was that decision made to implement it that way instead of tobacco settlement format that has been very successful? I think there were a lot of lessons that Opioid Commission could have learned and should have learned from how tobacco settlement was set up.
If we're talking about the opioid abatement funds, communities already receive 50% of that funding directly. So, like right now, Kentucky was awarded $842 million. Half of that goes directly to counties and cities that joined under the lawsuit. So that money is already going to local communities, half of it.
Unless I'm missing something, I think we're missing out on a board overseeing applications that would be vitally important in different local communities across the state to implement those, almost like our CAPE program that we were talking about a moment ago. I know it's a little bit different, but I think there are lessons that this commission could have learned from this programming. And I'll be quiet.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'll talk to you offline.
Representative Roark.
Thank you. I had the opportunity to attend Kentucky League of Cities in Owensboro, where you and Dr. Marks gave a presentation about the spending and the opioid settlement money and the core program. And I'm glad to see that you all are still continuing to spread that education across the state, because I went away from that program thinking about many options that Jefferson County could be utilizing, and I'm excited to hear about the more anti-stigma campaign going on across the state, because I think there's so many misconceptions about folks that use and recovery, and the more that we can, make our fellow man seen as a human and somebody worthy of a second chance, the better. So excited to see that, especially on social media. So I wanted to ask, in terms of our recovery, recovery, how, let me go back to my notes here real quick. I was shifting files. Let me get your cancel. Here we go. In terms of our recovery community centers, I think it was mentioned during that presentation that we really need one per county. About how many do we have right now?
Don't hold me to this. I think there are about 14 or 15.
Okay.
And Dr. Marks mentioned that yesterday in her remarks, that love to see one in every county, because they really can make a difference.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Any other questions? Van, one of the things that I want to come to is for those that are suffering from drug addiction, and when we look at them re-entering the workplace, I think it's important for us to remember and say thank you to the employers, because these individuals relapse many times before they get their lives straight. I can give an example of a young person who grew up in my home community that I have watched since the age of 18 suffer with addiction. And the fact that he is early 40s now, just in the last 3 years, that he has gotten himself straight how many employers went through, and you can understand an employer getting frustrated if you're hiring someone and you're losing them. But for those that continue to rehire or hire someone that's facing this, we need to remember them, because it puts a strain on that business. And their whole goal is to do, they're trying to help their community as well as trying to make a dollar. So I want to say thank you to those employers, because, as I said, they have experienced a lot to see these young people have the opportunity to get their life straight.
Yeah, that's a great point. I've been really pleasantly surprised at how many Kentucky employers have stood up the last 4 or 5 years and said, we want to be a part of the solution. We want to help folks get in recovery, stay in recovery. And so we're very grateful to our Kentucky employers that do that.
If there are no other questions, thank you for your
you, Chair.
presentation. We greatly appreciate it. To our members, our next meeting, we will not meet in July, but our next meeting will be on Thursday, August the 10th at 10:30. And if there is no other business, may I have a motion that we adjourn? We are adjourned. Thank you.